So how's everyone doing today? I guess you made it about 13 minutes in to finally hear me start speaking. So for those of you that tuned in for the sound of my lovely voice, you're welcome. Anyway, how's everybody been? So it's been about 3 weeks since I last filmed something, despite how on YouTube it should be just a week. Because I split the last one up into two, just because I reached the 1 hour mark and I don't really want to film beyond an hour. I just kind of want to relax and, have this all be sort of a nice chilling experience, even though we might talk about some things that make people uncomfortable. Like, for example, the CDC deciding that the guidelines should be that, what did they decide exactly? Because it's no longer, if you've been exposed to someone who has COVID-19 for 15 minutes, it's simply now just, what is it, symptoms? It's something like that, where it's like, well, you do realize that this disease doesn't really show symptoms for the first 14 days. So it takes a while to incubate there. So that's where we are. Just kind of trapped in this sort of purgatory where, I think we're just kind of racing to get back to normal at this point, regardless of whether or not there is a virus or a pandemic around here. I don't know. It's going to be tough going forward. I don't know what's really going to happen. I don't know how anyone's really going to make it. I feel for anyone who is suffering right now or knows someone who's suffering. It's not going to be easy. But, at least you can just kind of chill out and watch the butterflies fly by. But let's talk about some good news at least, right? As far as COVID's been concerned, we are back to having the CDC or FDA, I believe it's the CDC, back to tracking COVID cases, which is nice considering it's no longer under the guise of a private company that refused to release information due to an NDA with the government, which is kind of crazy because one of the points of having contracts with the government is that there's supposed to be accountability, it's supposed to be transparent, but it's a strange new world. Speaking of strange and all that, Palantir of all companies is supposed to be going to public soon. I believe they just filed today to list their stock, and I believe I heard they're just going to publicly list it. There won't be an IPO essentially. It'll just be on the stock exchange one day, which would be an interesting situation. I haven't seen many of those. I know I've been through them, and if I had to describe it, probably be like how most people experience IPOs. One day it's Monday, next day it's Tuesday. Not a big deal. But we'll see what goes on. Especially since they're a very big contract company. I mean, essentially, all their business is going to come from the government, which is going to be a little bit interesting because, as long as we have a military-industrial complex to kind of just stuff the pockets of government contractors, I guess they'll be a very profitable company. Not going to lie. So, America, the country that will invest in giving up their privacy. This is nice. Wonder, is that a bee? So, some kind of little insect creature just called on my camera right here. It's giving me a very nice view of himself. He's yellow, so I assume he's a bee, but he didn't quite have the stinger. So, I don't know, interesting little body. So I will say this, it's been a long while since I went down this path. Probably closer to 10 years. I remember somewhere around here there was an abandoned cabin. I don't think it was a log cabin, just a regular cabin. And it looked like, the kind of house that someone might have lived in, like, not even that long ago. Maybe 40 years ago. So 1980s, 1970s, I could have easily seen someone having that be their primary residence. Especially in this area where even my house didn't exist about 10 years ago. Well, actually it was, close to 13, 16 years ago? So, just goes to show how time flies. I mean, one of the things I thought of with this whole pandemic situation is just how when there were graduations canceled, those people graduating were not alive when I graduated high school. And it's interesting. So, I don't know. It's going to be some weird and crazy times. Days just keep on passing us by. Things change, and yet so little changes. So I believe actually the log cabin is over in that direction, but I really don't know. For all I know, they might have torn it down. I also know not really highway, but it's not really even a main road, it's just a 2-lane road, but it is, let's just say it's a busy road. People use it to get to work, get to home, that kind of a road. So. It's funny though, because when I was in high school, I wasn't really a punk necessarily, or at least, if people would see me, they wouldn't think of me as a punk, but I was a bit more of a delinquent, let's say that. And hung out with delinquents and things like that. And as soon as high school ended, never really talked to them again. And I always wondered what kind of happened to them. What are they doing right now? Especially during this situation, because I'll tell you this much, I don't really think they're working in offices. Some of them might be, especially the women. They might have gotten a nice little cushy marketing, or I don't know, not art designer, but what's a step below art designer? Some kind of job where it really kind of focuses on artistic abilities, where that was really the kind of crowd I ran with in high school. And when economies start shrinking, people aren't going to be buying art, even if it's for marketing. So that's just where we're at. Everybody's going to suffer. It sucks. Don't like it, don't want it, but it's just how it is. I really don't know what I can do to help people. Like, yeah, you could say, oh, just give people all your money. I mean, that is a really simple solution, isn't it? Jeff Bezos could give, he couldn't give $1,600, or $1,200, sorry. But he could give at least a third of that, probably. So $400 to every American if Jeff Bezos just gave up his wealth. Which, wouldn't be a bad thing. But I don't think he's going to do it either, especially since he's kind of notorious for being cheap. There's a rumor about him that when Amazon first started, instead of buying desks, he just bought doors because they were cheaper. I mean, kind of makes sense also. Like, hey, all you really need is 2 doors to hold up a door. Actually, if you want, you can make a double desk out of it. Have one person on one side, another person on another side. 2 doors supporting 2 doors. Although, who knows? Maybe Jeff Bezos is the kind of man to stuff 2 people at a desk, so it would have been 4 people at that desk. speaking of Jeff Bezos, I kind of want to continue on that for a bit because there's this, I don't know if you really want to call it a podcast, YouTube channel, whatever, but he was kind of defending Jeff Bezos. And this was about 2, 3, maybe 4 weeks ago, probably not 4. But back when Amazon, Apple, Facebook, Google, I do not believe Microsoft was present, but I think their time might be coming, but I can't quite recall if Microsoft was there. So, what was it? Jeff Bezos gave a very empowering speech about, how he still views himself as a small business, despite being, one of the top 5 most valuable businesses in the world. I suppose everyone thinks that way as long as they're doing the same thing, right? But what was it? He was saying that, one of Amazon's core principles is returning value not just to shareholders but to customers as well. But yeah, that sounds very nice. Except when you figure out that, hey, Amazon sometimes purchases businesses just for market share. And, that's not just conjecture, that's Jeff Bezos himself admitting it. And so when you consider that the committee's intention was to find out whether or not Amazon and several other companies are a monopoly, if you're purchasing things not for technology, not for, really anything other than market share, then that's kind of a monopolistic tendency. Like, it'd be like, because Apple iPhones, they get a lot of slack for, not really being the best phone, which for those iPhone users out there, sorry to break the bubble, but yeah, iPhones are not the best phone. In fact, I'm a Samsung user, and even Samsungs aren't the best phone. But they do have better cameras at times. As of this video, I'm not sure if that's still true, but I mean, there have been years, like I recall when I last bought my Samsung phone, their camera was better than the iPhone camera. So, hey, just how things go. But yet, I'm not gonna lie, there have been women where they said this in a sarcastic manner, but they still said to me, I'm totally judging you for not having an iPhone. And you may say, oh man, that woman must be a gold digger. Not quite. She's just a city girl. And not gonna lie, sometimes city girls are judgmental, even if they don't, it's not that they mean to be, but you can see the look on their face when you argue something that does not fit their worldview. Where, they would much rather have a, let's say, I'm trying to think of sports cars right now that are really expensive but not that good. I guess we could just go for a Mercedes and say, if all you're doing is using your car to go buy groceries and go to work and go home, do you really need to spend the extra 20 or 60 grand on it? Probably not. Could probably just do yourself a favor. Probably just save that 20 or 30 grand and just buy a really nice driver's seat for your car anyway. Bet you'd make yourself real happy. But yeah, that's the world we live in, where, your name brand is more important than what you actually got and what it does to make you happy. But that's life. So I kind of went off on a tangent there because I wanted to talk about Jeff Bezos and his monopolistic market share tendencies. So the one congresswoman, whose name I don't recall, a blonde lady, mentioned that Amazon purchased or wanted to purchase diapers, or is it babies.com or what have you, and all he did was sell diapers. I don't think you have to go that far to look to find diapers on Amazon. So there is no reason why Amazon should be purchasing a diaper seller just to sell on their own platform. But they purchased that company. However, you may say, oh, well, they purchased a company. A company made a very good service and product, and they achieved a market share that someone wanted to purchase. What's wrong with that? Oh, nothing at all, really. Except when you consider that when Amazon wanted to purchase them, what they did was they sold diapers at a loss or a steep discount, which is the only reason why diapers ended up selling to them, because they knew they were going to go out of business. They were at a crossroads where they could either join forces with Walmart or join forces with Amazon. And Amazon made it abundantly clear, if they sold to Walmart, they would not survive. And so the thing that kind of gets me, though, is that person who I originally talked about on YouTube, their argument was, I think if I sold all my shares and put all my money into Amazon stock, I think I'd be very happy. I think I'd be okay. And I think that's a valid argument, but the argument kind of falls apart when you consider that Jeff Bezos is the CEO of a company that tries to sell products and services. Well, when you consider congressional leadership, they're not really trying to sell anything. They are trying to get reelected, but, that woman who asked the question about diapers.com, they didn't have their own diaper brand as far as I'm aware of. And even if they did, man, that brand needs some work. So that is the thing. And I did a little search myself on Amazon for diapers to see, so that story happened in about 2017, I believe. And so I looked and I saw that it was something like you could buy 250 diapers on Amazon in 2017 for, I think it was like under $45, I believe. However, in the year 2020, you can go to Amazon and you can buy 180 diapers for about $44, I believe. Again, under $45. So you're now paying more per diaper, essentially. And you could say, oh, what's the difference between 180 and 250 diapers? Well, I'm gonna guess you probably don't have kids, because if your baby poops 2-3 times a day, you're gonna notice that difference of only 70 diapers really quick. I mean, that is only a month less. Like, would you rather have diapers for a month more? Assuming those, your baby only poops 2 times a day, therefore only needs 2 diapers per day. Yeah, 70 days. Or not 70 days, 70 diapers over 35 days. But hey, that's just the world we live in, right? And that YouTuber, they've made other arguments for Jeff Bezos before. Like they answer questions from time to time. And one thing I noticed that they tend to do is they tend to change the argument or change the question. So, for example, someone asked and said, hey, should Jeff Bezos, be forced to sell off all of his wealth? And, just spread that money, across the American people. And of course, that person took a very anti-view of it. And so, their argument, I can't remember what it was, because they changed the question, where I really do forget what it was. But I mean, when you consider the idea of paying your fair share and all that junk, even though I refer to it as junk, I still think you should do it. But, I mean, hey, when Social Security runs out, that's going to be why. When your firefighters, are overworked and don't get enough sleep at the firehouse, you're going to know why now. Like, it is not a mystery that if we do not tax enough for our services, we're just going to go into debt, and then we're going to have debt servicing, which is not entirely that bad, except for when you consider that that most bonds and stocks are owned by a very wealthy class of individuals, which I myself, I looked this up recently, and I saw that I crossed into the 54th percentile by net worth, which was kind of exciting, not gonna lie. It was also an odd feeling, because I don't really consider myself too wealthy. Like, here I am, just walking around in the park, filming and talking, being a general idiot. But I guess this is just how I decide to spend my time, right? So another argument that they made was Fortnite recently got kicked off of the Apple and Google Android store because they had designed a link in their own app that said you can either buy, purchase their virtual currency on Apple for $9.99, or you could get the same amount from Fortnite directly on their website for $7.99. There's the argument that, that's a 30%, that Apple has a 30% surcharge on services and items in the purchase through the App Store. And, I definitely agree to that. Like, it's not right. Imagine you did all the work and then somebody gets to take a 30% charge of it, no matter whether it's profitable or not. So ultimately, the consumer ends up paying more, However, you could say then, well, how would Apple support the Apple Store if it was not for that extra surcharge? I think that's a very fair argument. You can also add on the fact that, all right, 30%, $9.99. Wouldn't that make the real price $6.99? Again, you're right. But, I think if Epic even charged $9.98 instead of, $9.99 versus, their own website versus the App Store, or, I think even that is a valid argument. But when I say valid argument, I mean for Epic, because again, it's that company deciding how much to charge for their product and where to charge how much for it. Because you could say, all right, let's say that Epic did not have that link on the app, but if you went to their website, they did have that fee. What if Apple was to say, no matter what, you cannot undercut the price on the App Store? I mean, then they're just charging whatever they want. And Apple could be in a position where they decide the prices for products and services at that point. So that's why I support Epic in this decision, because Apple is at that point dictating how a business can run themselves. And on this YouTube channel, they argued that it's the equivalent of setting up a store in Sam's Club without Sam's Club permission. And I completely disagree, because you did get permission to sell in Sam's Club in this case. The only difference is you essentially said, hey, instead of purchasing, this product or service at Sam's Club, just go across the street and purchase from our store directly. Like, that's literally all it is. And so, and if you go across the street to purchase it from us directly, then you get a discount, a 20% discount. I mean, what is wrong with that business model? You're selling in multiple places, and you are not, you're selling your product that you made and you are now making available to customers. What is wrong with saying, hey, at our own store, we make it's cheaper for us to sell it there than it is here? What is wrong with that argument? And again, you could say, well, if everyone did that, then Apple would go out of business. Okay, maybe they should go out of business. Like, the argument that if you did that, you would go out of business is not a very compelling argument. Like, seriously. Like, oh, I should pay more. Like, think of that from a customer perspective. I should pay more because if I don't, this will go out of business. Even though I could buy what I want right now cheaper and from somewhere else. Like, isn't that how the free market works? If you sell something for cheaper and it's a better or even quality, then what's the problem? So I guess I'm in Tim Sweeney's boat on this one. Is his name Tim Sweeney or Todd Sweeney? I forget. So hopefully he doesn't hear this and decide to delete my Epic Store account or whatever. Which, by the way, Epic is by no means a hero. They do their own kind of shisty things. Much like people and companies, there is no altruistic, perfect person or company. You kind of, I think Dave Chappelle said this about trans people, where you're going to have to make alliances with some not so good bedfellows. And, I am of the same agreement. Like, which again raises a question, like, all right, what if, what's his name, David King? Who's the guy that, not runs the KKK, but he's a very prominent man in the KKK. What if he was to lend his support to the trans community? Of course, he would still be racist and all that stuff, but would the trans community accept it? Or would they, hold their noses for any kind of, not completely acceptable altruistic person? And that's kind of how I feel sometimes about Al Franken as well. It's like, I think he should have stood his ground and said, no, I'm going to, resign when Trump resigns. Because other than the photographic evidence, there really was about the same accusations to Trump as to him. I mean, with Trump, you could even say there's more because of the Stormy Daniels thing. But again, that's just prostitution. Even though it's illegal in America, once it comes out to light that, that occurred, well, we're not going to prosecute anyone. So I don't know what else there is to talk about. I can talk about my personal life if you want, but it's interesting yet uninteresting at the same time. So I guess we'll start with the oldest story, which isn't that old, maybe about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. So went on a date with this girl. She seemed really interested once I started talking about photography and things like that. And you know how you can tell when like a girl likes you? Like, you know, they're almost, their eyes open up and they're leaning forward in their seat and all that kind of stuff. The easy cues that not even just girls, but anyone is interested in what you're saying. And it was really weird because, so after dinner, we started walking around and we're just talking, chatting, you know, doing really nothing. And we see this one medical, not even medical, just marijuana dispensary. And so we walk in, because despite marijuana having been legal for 8 months now, I still haven't smoked it, still haven't, really gone out and done anything. So we just walk in the dispensary together because she was interested. And yeah, we just talked with the guy, and he seemed really cool, seemed really chill. Like, he's like, hey, what is it? I saw that he had what is it? I don't even know what you'd call it other than a plate. Like, it was just a plate with, various blunts on it. And the plate, though, was a spoof or a parody. It was Call of Doobie. And so I was like, ha ha ha, that's kind of interesting or funny, or, just sort of anytime you see a parody that isn't that thoughtful, you just kind of look at it and you chuckle. And he's like, oh yeah, you like video games? And I said, yeah, I do. And he's like, well, I'm gonna have to throw this out because it's only good for a while, which I've never heard of pot expiring in my life. But hey, if that's a thing, then that's a thing. And so he's like, I can just give you guys this for free. And yeah, it was like 8:30. You could tell that like in 15 minutes he was gonna start closing up. And so, hey, we just got free pot out of that. And so we're just walking around the street, and I'm like, hey, do you have a lighter? To the girl. And she's like, no, do you? I'm like, no, let's just go to 7-Eleven and buy one. So we got a lighter, we got some drinks as well, and just started walking around the city pretty much. And so we're just walking in like a neighborhood, and we start, we light it up, start smoking it. It's weird. I've never really felt anything when I smoked pot before, but like this one I kind of did. Like, it really wasn't enough to justify whatever the price would be on if I had actually purchased that. But yeah, no, it was whatever-ish. And so I'm still like flirting with the girl, we're talking, and she's like, are you gonna be okay to drive? Which, I mean, I did say to her, like, oh yeah, I kind of feel it. Or maybe I even just said it flat out, I feel it. But, I say, yeah, I think I'm gonna be okay to drive. And I make like kind of a sly comment, like, oh, why, if I'm not, are you gonna take care of me? And she says yes. And at this point, I reach out my arm, like, just kind of put it around her hip. And she backs away. She's like, no. I'm just like, well, actually, no, it wasn't even like that. When you can tell that someone no longer likes you? Like, that's what it felt like. So I guess going for, my hand around her hip, that was a no-no mark. But what else? Like, it was just weird because even before that, I had, she had asked me for my Snapchat. Like, sometime after we got that pot, and before we got the lighter, she said, hey, what's your Snapchat? And probably because I said something along the lines of, oh, stuff like this happens to me all the time, which it does and does not. Mostly does not. Like, look around here right now, nobody is giving me free pot. But you know what, hey, I've had other circumstances where things similar to that have happened. But yeah, so, whatever. It's not something I would, really call my life story, but I know when you're on a date, when you're dating someone, you want to make it seem like your life is adventurous and fun, because I'll say this as one major criticism to a lot of women that I see is they are so not interested if your life isn't something like, yeah, I climbed Mount Everest last week and this week I'm gonna go wrestle a tiger. You know, just completely off the wall, like adventurous things. And it's kind of a shame because it's just like, ugh. It feels very inauthentic. And it feels as though these women really aren't on a date. They just want someone who's impressive and that, like, it feels more like you're an item at that point, which is fine, really. But at the same time, it makes it feel like they're not really looking for a partner. They're looking for someone to show off or to make themselves feel better so that they can vicariously live through your accomplishments. And so that's kind of a major problem I have with most dating now. So, on top of that, so as I said, she asked for my Snapchat, and like, you know, say 20 minutes later, probably not even, 15 minutes later, try to put my arm around her, she just kind of recoils, and you know, then she starts asking things like, what are you looking for? And it's like, what do you think I'm looking for? Like, if you think I'm looking for a hookup, or if you think I'm looking for a relationship, that's all that really matters, right? And if I said I'm looking for a relationship, but you think I'm looking for a hookup, I don't think that would change your mind, and vice versa. If I said, if you thought I was looking for a relationship and you thought I was looking for, or if you thought I was looking for a relationship and I said I'm looking for a hookup, you probably wouldn't change your actions too much. So that's just kind of like my problem is, it seems like people want, so I will say this though, people do tend to want validation of their beliefs. So I will say, if she thought I was looking for a relationship, and if I confirmed that, despite whether I really was or was not, she probably would have treated me differently. Whether it's good or bad or whatever, she just would have acted a certain way, which is pretty common. So you might have seen me looking earlier at like these kinds of things. Man, I don't think my gimbal likes that. But yeah, hopefully you can see that. And so I was just kind of looking and like I could have sworn that there were names on these stones at one point. Like if you look over here, if I can see, like you can see that N on top. I swore there used to be names on top of these, and I always thought to myself, like, how weird would that be to have your name on something that people sit on now? So, I don't know. It doesn't seem like a very honorable way to be remembered. So anyway, back to the girl. So we met on a dating app, and she, you know, so after our date, we both get home, go our separate ways. I offer her a ride home. She says no, which, you know, again, just kind of contributes to my belief that, like, oh man, things are really over at this point. And so, like, you know, the thing is, I think I don't recall if I messaged her first or if she messaged me first, but let's just say I messaged her first. And I said, oh, you know, I said my typical thing, like, oh, I had a nice time with you tonight, I'd like to see you again, blah, blah, blah. And like every girl, she said, yeah, I'd like to see you again too, and, you know, I had a nice time. And she goes through my pictures on Snapchat, so I was like, oh, that's a good picture. And it was a picture I took on our date, you know, in front of her. Like, so yeah, like, what was it? There was some statue, and yeah, I just took a picture of that. And so, yeah, that was just like a thing. I don't know, it felt weird. And anyway, we're just talking, and so I say, oh yeah, are you available next weekend? She says, no, I got school. And I said, like, I didn't really say anything, but I just thought to myself, like, you know, I say next weekend and you say you have school, which, okay, yeah, maybe you actually do have like homework that's really going to eat into your weekend and social life. But again, it just felt weird and felt, you know, it felt like that's the usual excuse is, oh, I can't be available next weekend because I have X or Y going on. And it was just like, ugh. Just the typical bullshit line, because once you've been on like so many of those situations, you just see through the lies and the constant repetitive arguments of just like, no, I can't do X because of Y. And it's like, ugh. Like, just tell me the truth at that point. Because, you know, like, what was it? Things started to get weird at that point. Because next day, you know, I'm just like, okay, you know, or what did I say? I think I said like, like MM or whatever. Kind of, or no, I said, when she said that she's not available next weekend. And so I'm just like, okay, whatever. Next day,